He's now in the quotation marks prime of his developing years, and his drive is altered. His mind state is altered. What is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Today's ASMR sip is some black coffee, followed up by an ASMR sip number 2, some core power. 2 liquid textures, ASMR sipped in this one. All right, guys, you guys see the title. SARMs shrink your penis. So this channel has probably some of the most detailed SARM content out of all the gurus, if you want to call us that. And it's been one of the biggest things documented on my channel. However, I am rooted in reality. I wanted to present this topic because this is something I discovered along my journey of PED abuse. But if you're just stopping in, I have documented tons of SARMs-Only cycles and have reported estrogen crashes, DHT being altered. And I wanted to go into why I kept my SARM-Only experiments so small and how you could translate into what's going on with the rapid PED abuse around the world, right? So with SARMs, are selective androgen receptor modulators. What does this mean? They're not like traditional hormones in the sense of they don't convert to estrogen or DHT. DHT being the primary male androgen, the master controller androgen, the one that is associated with like deep voice, androgenic acne, aggression, as well as, speed of the CNS. Right, I'll say it in that sense, like the speed of the CNS could be in relation to a dihydrotestosterone level that's circulating. With these SARMs, they were designed in the beginning to aid old people in a small minuscule dosage to activate more AR as you age, thus resulting in better bone density, better overall mental clarity because you have more AR being activated, and they are kind of a complement on top of the HBTA that is already, taking a toll over the aging process, right? When we get into the abuse of SARMs, especially with me when I was younger, I really wanted to see what SARMs-Only could do. I wanted to push the envelope into what I thought was possible with SARMs. And with my journey, I knew I was going to do steroids eventually. I personally like training in the gym. It's like Andrew or Zach, it's like if you go to a bar, eventually you drink most of the time, right? That's what you go to the bar for. For me, it was like, okay, I'm eventually going to do some gym candy. I'm going to start with these SARMs because they seem to be less side effects from a glance. And they seem to be something that I could start off with and then dip my feet slowly more into the deep end as I went on and on. What I noticed when I did these SARMs-Only cycles is that I could probably get away with around an 8-week cycle before my estrogen would crash. That also meant that my hormones were crashing with the more powerful ones. Now, this didn't bother me because I had an understanding of what's going on. I did enough research. Obviously, I wasn't where I am today to know that, hey, my estrogen is crashing. I'm going to make no gains. I'll see if Andrew or Zach can throw up the RAD 140 only cycle where you can see at the end my estrogen is crashed. I look grainy. I look separated, but to me, my libido was shot. I definitely didn't feel myself neurochemically. I felt altered, and that had to do with my estrogen being crashed, my hormones crashing, aka my nuts got smaller with RAD 140. It's basically almost like a male castration pill at the higher dosages. And I had probably an altered dihydrotestosterone level. I only did RAD 140, I think, in that video for 7 weeks. And then I used something called clomiphene to restart my gonads. So my nuts were massive. They were producing natural testosterone again, thus resulting in the natural testosterone converting into estrogen, refilling that out, restoring that cascade, as well as restoring the dihydrotestosterone cascade with the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. So I recovered my levels, but you could argue during that time, of around, I'd say my HPTA shut off around like 5-6 weeks in. I noticed the HPTA really crank off, which all it's detecting is the AR being activated. Like there's too many AR being activated. There's systemic inflammation going on. We're going to suppress the nuts down. If I had the info I had today, I would have ran ATG and HMG during this cycle. I didn't. I could have kept my gonads on. I could have kept my DHT level there. Point being is that R8140 is directly competing against DHT, and that I pretty much shut off my gonads. I'm relying on R8140 as this base androgen. However, I am ruining the secondary sexual characteristics developing, in my opinion, during that short span that I did R8140 only. This is what I would like to point out, is that you're chronically doing SARMs only cycles. You are resulting in an overall lower DHT level, which isn't good for your penis enlargement. Now, Russo has a whole penis enlargement playlist that you can watch right here, and he's all about growing his cock over here, right? If I talk about myself in the third person, I'm about having big dick energy. If we're going to do these SARMs only cycles chronically, we're not going to PCT. We're going to overall lower the DHT level in our body. It's going to be replaced by this SARM that can compete against DHT. This is altering the male ability to develop these secondary sexual characteristics that could cause penis shrinking. Yeah, I'll say it. I'm based on this channel, right? You can see that I eventually came to the conclusion as I went along in my bodybuilding enhanced journey that I'm going to add a testosterone base under this SARM so I never run out of DHT or E2. Because with R8140, it's such a powerful androgen that by week 7, and this is on video and I have a reaction to this cycle and everything. This was before I entered any steroids into my body. So this is a really good, documentary style log of this cycle. That my E2, everything was crashed, my libido was fucked, but I had this crazy androgen revving my body up, right? But I was halting the development of my secondary male sexual characteristics for about a couple weeks until I jacked up the clomiphene dosage, restored my balls to gorilla nuts, and then boom, I reversed out of it. I had that education to know what I did to myself to not continue down that road. One of my car Instagram friends, I'll just say it like that, he has a best friend that did R8140 in high school and never PCT'd, and I'm dealing with this sort of thing where he halted his secondary male puberty. I'll put it in quotes, right? And I can see it. It's not like me, oh, Russo's just, he's like crazy over here. I'm the crazy lab rat. I reversed it. Then I added in a testosterone base. And if you added in HCG or HMG under it, you would be fine. I could say all this stuff, but this information isn't out there like that. And this individual did R8140, got jacked up on R8140 for a bit. It crashed him. He didn't PCT. He didn't have any of this education knowledge. He essentially not castrated himself, but slowed his secondary male sexual characteristics, the secondary bout of male puberty, if you want to call that in quotation marks, that occurs, after the first bout of puberty. It's the second bout that a lot of males seem to be struggling with. Dihydrotestosterone plays a big role in that. You need dihydrotestosterone in there. And for me, it's like I have to tell my friend he had regression from this. This can be reversed. We have to get blood work done. I have to see, where his natural testosterone is sitting, probably see where his DHT is sitting, probably think of like, okay, might want to jack up the DHT. And there's elements that can go wrong with jacking up the DHT. You're inflaming the prostate, you're causing more inflammation, androgenic acne. There's all these sort of issues where these SARMs are such powerful compounds. They were designed for old people to prolong their quality of life in small dosages, in my opinion, on top of an already compromised HPTA. Enter bodybuilding chat, let's abuse them. Okay, I discovered after 7 weeks of R8140 only at big boy dosages, which is like 40 milligrams a day, which is that's pretty significant fucking dose, okay? I crashed my E2, crashed my nuts. Boom, sperm was like water. That means my DHT is fucked up. Russo goes back to the drawing board. Russo recovers his HPTA. Eventually, Russo decides that, okay, I need testosterone under these SARMs for them to make sense, and then became the argument of the OGs in the Guru game, seeing that I had to add in testosterone under the SARMs, thus making fun of SARMs more. Where now it's like, okay, if there's a test base under it, these are very powerful orals, and you can make that argument. Or you can make the argument that you don't want to fuck with the dihydrotestosterone hierarchy tree at all. You want dihydrotestosterone to always be that primary androgen, and we see people in other parts of, in quotation marks, biohacking, fucking with DHT as the primary androgen. And there's always all this sort of hoopla that DHT is this primary male androgen that you can change the base androgen. For example, RAD140 seems to compete with DHT just fine, but it's causing a plethora of issues. There's always a plethora of issues when DHT is taken off the primary androgen. RAD140 100% has the capability to do that with the binding affinity to the androgen receptor. What's my thoughts? If you're doing SARMs only constantly and you're afraid of needles, or I have muscle gels, Andro Cream I believe has an estrogen conversion, but primarily you need some sort of DHT level in there personally, and DHT should always be circulating. In my mind, I would like to see this be brought to the forefront, that SARMs only for extended periods of time, not getting blood work, not seeing where your estrogen is at after a SARMs only cycle, not seeing where your DHT is at after a SARMs only cycle. You could be causing testicular shrinkage, but more importantly, you could be shrinking your fucking dick. And Russo's about growing dudes' dicks on this channel. Russo's on the road to 9, right? I'm around 8, okay? It's a long, hard road to get to 9 inches, Zach. It's been a very long road. You could argue that if I did more DHT stuff in the beginning, maybe I'd be farther along. Point being is I figured it out. I always spent money on fucking clomiphene and Nolvadex and fucking restarted and went through all the fucking side effects of clomiphene. Always was worried about my testicular to brain connection. Always keeping the nuts plump even when I'm on fucking cycle, whether that be HCG or HMG. I was always on point with that shit. The story I have of the guy in high school who did RAD140 only, he's now in the quotation marks prime of his developing years, and his drive is altered. His mind state is altered. His ability to interact with women and, in quotation marks, you know, show the dominant side is impacted around this dihydrotestosterone level that he altered. He altered going on RAD140 only. He crashed his shit. It probably didn't bounce back normally. It's resulted him at a lower DHT level, and this is impacting his gonadal second bout of puberty, in quotation marks. That seems to be a widespread issue with not even just like chronic like PD abuse, but maintaining this mind state, this tenacity. That's like another big thing that DHT helps you do. And I always say like, oh, when I'm in sparring shape, I know when I'm in sparring shape. I always point over that direction. But SARMs 100% in the SARMs only fashion can cause your penis to shrink the same way Tren can shrink your penis too. I never get good erections on fucking Tren dick. Yeah, it means I can last forever in bed, but my dick doesn't feel, in quotation marks, the greatest. You want DHT in there. You want DHT as the primary androgen, and you always want to keep an eye out on where your estrogen is at after a SARMs only cycle, where your DHT is at after a SARMs only cycle. And the primary thing is like, what I want to see is like common education on HCG and HMG being run all the time. That's it. And that SARMs only really, unless you're microdosing like Ostrine in a minuscule dosage for mental clarity, and like it'll help your look a little bit. You're not going to look like crazy juiced up. But if you're about actually viciously using SARMs at the, in quotation marks, bodybuilder dosages, most bodybuilders like, they like YK11 LGD, but most of these SARMs are kind of in like the TRT plus category. I'll say it like that, right? They're complementary oral androgens that do something, and in minuscule dosages they don't really impact biomarkers. But if you're one of these guys that's pushing RAD140 SARMs-40 only to incredibly high dosages, just know that that's not really good for your libido and penis over time if you're cranking your DHT level low because you're suppressing your gonads, which RAD140 is basically a male castration pill. You can be thinking of some of these as male contraceptive development. S23 was a male contraception, drug investigative chemical essentially. When I take S23, my sperm turns to literal water and I have to do drugs after that to recover it. And this is just things that I know because I read into what I'm doing. If you're at a supplement shop and they tell you S23 is the strongest SARM and you start taking it and it's fucking up your DHT level because it beats DHT the receptor, it shuts you down because it was designed as a contraceptive, after your dick's going to be shrunk. Your dick is going to suffer atrophy unless you do drugs to recover that. And you might not know to do drugs to recover that. And I can tell you an over-the-counter PCT probably is not the same as doing N-clomiphene or clomiphene after, and or doing HCG and HMG on cycle. That's my 2 cents. I will see you guys in my next video.